used to think betrayal was a single act, a door slamming, a text in the wrong thread, a lipstick stain with no plausible origin story. That's naive. Betrayal is rarely a single door. It's a hallway, one that turns and turns until you can't see where you started, and every step echoes like you're walking on your own chest. My name is Daniel. I'm 34, a systems engineer in Austin, Texas. I lead inverter controls for a clean tech company that sells grid-scale battery systems to utilities. It's not glamorous. It is, however, the difference between Texas having brownouts in July and not. I take pride in that. Pride used to be enough. I met Maya at a Friday lunch and learned about wildfire resiliency. I was presenting fault ride-through on distribution lines. She was in the third row, eyes bright, taking notes like she was grading me. Afterwards, she asked a question no PM had ever asked me. What part of this keeps you awake at night? I said, human error, ours. She smiled and said, then we'll build processes that make error unlikely. I'm a sucker for anyone who believes in process. A month later, we were swapping playlists and arguing about cilantro. 2 months in, my cat Newton decided her lap was a territory worth annexing. 3 months in, she had a toothbrush at my place. I'm a widower. Lily, my wife, died 4 years ago. Drunk driver, Wednesday night. I won't linger. Grief is a fatigue, no metaphor fixes. I tell you because Maya knew that history. She knew what trust meant in my body. She put her hand on mine and said, I would never do that to you. The first time she said it, I believed her so completely that it felt like a new bone knitting in my chest. Brandon arrived in our lives wearing a navy blazer and the kind of smile that comes with a loyalty program. Strategic partnerships, freshly poached to wrangle utility deals. He had a Stanford ring, a golf tan, and a way of talking that made every sentence feel like an elevator pitch. He started with the West Rock Energy account, which in our world is basically a boss fight. He asked smart questions about narrative and dumb questions about physics, and Maya ended up in his calendar a lot because that's what partnership people do. They flood your PM. At first I didn't care. Maya was good at her job. Seeing her on back-to-back Zooms with Brandon looked like proof of competence, not an omen. Then she started working late, then later. Then I noticed she changed her phone's notification style to show previews never. One night, around 11:45 p.m., while we were splitting cold pad thai on my couch, her phone buzzed 3 times. The first preview flashed just enough to show a name, Brandon Avery. She flipped the phone face down. Work? I asked. It's always work with Brandon, she said, making a face. He thrives after hours. He should try sunlight, I said, and she laughed. I kissed her knuckles the old-fashioned way I sometimes do and let it go. You can't police an adult's phone and still call it love. A month later, we had a Dallas offsite, 2 days of strategy in a hotel ballroom with a living moss wall and coffee that tasted like ambition. I checked in, grabbed my badge, and saw Maya and Brandon standing too close on the other side of the room, heads bent together like co-conspirators waiting for a cue. Maybe that's all it was? Work conspiracy. But I noticed the beat. Her hand rested on his back after she laughed. Some touches are punctuation, some are a new sentence. See you tonight, I texted her. Running late in prep? Crash early, big morning, she wrote back. At 12:40 a.m., I went downstairs for ice and walked past a glass-hidden conference room. 2 silhouettes stood near the far wall, the lights off. A woman's laugh, muffled. A man saying, we shouldn't, in the tone men use when they really mean, don't stop. I kept walking because the floor felt unstable under me. I slept 4 hours and delivered my deck on autopilot. If the story ended there, it would be boring. Suspicion is boring. The human mind is a bad detective and an even worse judge. Back home, I tried to be sensible. Maya had never given me a reason to doubt her beyond a few corporate vibes. Brandon is a vibe factory. I told myself to be an adult about it. So I made a deal with myself, document reality, not feelings. If work patterns were off, they'd show up in the systems. We track everything in my world. Access logs, Slack velocity, calendar density. You don't have to be a spy, you just have to read. I had a back channel with people analytics because I'd helped Sam, their lead, rebuild her home NAS when it ate a family photo archive. I pinged her. Random question, can we view aggregate DM patterns on West Rock? I'm seeing wonky comms. Want to make sure we're not creating a single point of failure. She likes clean systems. She sent me a heat map with a shrug emoji. The map didn't accuse anyone of anything. It just lit up red after hours between B. Avery and M. Collins. No surprise. But the magnitude made my stomach go cold. 68% of all after-hours project DMs ran through those two nodes for 3 weeks straight. Yikes, Sam wrote. If you care about SPOF, this is it. I care, I typed. That same week, Brandon invited a handful of key stakeholders to a closing dinner at a steakhouse downtown. I wasn't invited. Omar from QA texted, "You coming?" I looked at my inbox like a kid looking at the sky for snow and seeing nothing but Texas. "Didn't get it I sent." "Weird," he replied. "Maya's here." Then, 30 minutes later, Brandon's drunk charming the client guy, Ethan Cole. You'd hate him. Ethan Cole, Director of Strategic Procurement at West Rock. The name made a noise in my head. I couldn't place it at first. Then I remembered 2 weeks earlier in the living room, Maya had tossed her tote down and a paper slipped out printed calendar invites for a travel reimbursement review. I picked it up to hand it back, glanced without meaning to, and read a name I didn't recognize. E. Cole Coffee. She said it was a reschedule, nothing important. I believed her. Trust is a reschedule, nothing important. I believed her. Trust is a muscle. Mine wanted the reps. The next morning, I found an earring back in my car. Not Maya's style. Hers were enamel pins and hoops. This was the delicate butterfly kind your grandmother wears to church. I held it between my fingers and felt crazy. The human brain is a conspiracy theorist when it's scared. It will knit two unrelated facts into a sweater and then suffocate you with it. "Whose is this?" I asked Maya that night, holding the earring back up like evidence. She glanced, shrugged. "Probably mine. Or fell out from a friend. You're the one who gives rides to half your team." "Do I?" I said, thinking about how I don't. She kissed me. "Dan, you're spiraling. Please don't." Spiral is a fair word for what comes next, but not the kind that looks like late-night Facebook stalking or finding a hair on a sweater and playing CSI. I called my lawyer. Ria is 40-something, whip-smart, and allergic to drama. She handled my wrongful death civil suit against the city after Lily's crash, guided me through the settlement minefield, and told me not to read the comments when a local blog called me the guy who sued grief into money. She took my call and said, "Start from the facts, not the feelings." I told her about the DM heat map, the Dallas offsite, the closing dinner I wasn't invited to, the earring back, the calendar printout, and the way my chest felt like a garage door that wouldn't close. I did not tell her I had once used Maya's Face ID to open her iPad months back when she fell asleep mid-sentence and asked me to download an app because I hadn't repeated that sin since and didn't want a lecture I deserved. 2 tracks, Maria said. Work and personal. On the work track, if you believe there's a conflict of interest affecting disclosures or vendor selection, you document and escalate, internally first, externally if necessary. On the personal track, you don't snoop, you don't break laws. If you need facts you can trust, you hire a licensed PI. Hearsay ruins cases and lives. A PI? I asked, feeling ridiculous and also relieved. Delegating the worst part of your imagination to a professional is like hiring someone to hold your breath. "I'll refer you to one who knows corporate," she said. "Give them dates, places, names. Keep your hands clean." The investigator's name was Lila. Ex-military, quiet, eyes like she could see the lie you tell yourself before you say it out loud. We met at a coffee shop in a strip mall nobody would notice. She slid a form across to me and said, "I don't do illegal. I don't do bedrooms. I do public places, publicly accessible records, and patterns. If you want trash, hire TMZ." "I want truth," I said, and my voice surprised me by sounding like steel. I gave her dates, Dallas off-site, West Rock dinners, a planning day with a different client, Harbor & Co., a mid-sized EPC firm in Houston that had popped up as a friendly consultant on 2 of our RFPs. Names, Brandon Avery, Ethan Cole, and a Harbor rep named Trevor Kent, who had the softened edges of a man who decided haircuts were optional 15 years ago. Places, the Line, the Archer, the Driskill Bar, because, of course, a wine bar in Domain North Side that Maya said she hated but seemed to visit a lot. Lila nodded and asked one more question. "Do you want to know, or do you want to win?" "What's the difference?" I asked. "Knowing is messy," she said. "Winning requires patience." I learned to be patient. I went to work. I debugged a firmware bug that only showed up when the MCU came out of a 96-hour sleep. I ate microwaved rice and eggs when I was too tired to cook, and I pretended to read a book at night while my eyes kept skipping to the door. Maya slept over half the week and worked late the other half. She was attentive, then distracted, then attentive again, with the guilt of someone who knew which side of the seesaw had weight. She was good at looking tired in a way that made you want to tuck her in and not ask where she'd been. 2 weeks later, Lila texted, "We should talk, in person." We met at a pocket park off 6th, sun low, runners passing, someone's off-leash doodle rolling in grass like it was the best day it had ever had. Lila handed me a thin folder, no drama. "Public places, public records," she said. "Your girlfriend meets the partnerships led, sure, hotel lobby bars, restaurant patios. But it's not only him." She had timestamps. Photos of Maya walking into the Archer Hotel at 10:18 p.m. with Brandon and leaving alone at 12,000 a.m. A justice that looks like self-control is still not the truth. Screenshots of Brandon's car leaving the garage 5 minutes after. Another set from a week later, Maya at the Commodore Perry Estate Bar with Ethan Cole, hands touching more times than an average conversation requires. They left 15 minutes apart and met again the next morning at a coffee shop you only choose when you've already decided to ruin someone's day. Receipts from West Rock's T&E system, publicly accessible via a link if you knew how to search, showing client entertainment for two paid by Ethan with tips that read like someone trying to buy off guilt with percentages. And then there was Harper & Co., Trevor Kent, a photo of Maya and Trevor at the JW Marriott Terrace, heads close, another the following week at a wine bar near Maya's gym. If I'd wanted to build a case that she was just networking, I could have. Patterns are clay, your hands decide the shape, but the folder also contains something else, a ring. Not physically, a detail. Lila's report mentioned that Ethan Cole wore a platinum band in every photo except two, both nights with Maya. "It could be unrelated," Lila said. "People take rings off for lots of reasons, but if you were me, you'd flag it." "Is he married?" I asked, feeling my voice go thin. "Engaged," she said. "Public Instagram. Her name is Tessa. Marketing manager. Likes hiking and candles that cost more than my boots. Wedding in October. Veil." I felt the kind of anger that makes your hands go cold and precise. The anger that builds bridges and burns them at the same time. "Is there more?" I asked. "There's always more," she said. "The question is, what you do with what you have. This is enough to nuke 3 lives. You sure you want to?" "I don't want to nuke 3 lives," I said, and that was the truth. I want the truth to stop being optional. Back home, I put the folder in a locked drawer and sat on the floor with Newton. He head-butted my chin and then bit my hand because love is complicated. Maya texted at 10:22 p.m. Late. "Crash," I typed. "Be safe," and watched the bubble bounce like a heartbeat. The next day, I started the work track. I reopened the risk register on West Rock and dragged every ghost of a concern into the light. Texas ambient temperatures versus our thermal management, in. Firmware wake from sleep latency, in. An adhesion issue we'd seen at high humidity in a pilot south of Corpus, in. I sent the list to Maya and Brandon with a crisp note. "We need formal mitigation before any term sheet." Brandon replied in 5 minutes. "We appreciate your thoroughness, Daniel, but we can't engineer out all risk. We'll never sign anything if we chase every hypothetical." "Hypotheticals don't trip breakers during a heat wave," I wrote. "They only look hypothetical until the grid falls over." Maya DM'd me separately. "Can we not do this over email?" I responded in the main thread. "Let's keep to open channels so the whole team stays aligned." She didn't reply. That afternoon, my badge stopped opening the lab door. Security said it was a glitch. IT said on it. My manager, who is kind and conflict avoidant, slacked. "Think you could be more, flexible on West Rock?" "Leadership is tense," I said. "My flexibility ends where governance begins." At 5:30 p.m., Jonas, our CEO, sent a calendar invite for a morning meeting with the subject line, "Risk Alignment, West Rock." The room was Conference A, the one with a living wall that always looks thirsty. When I arrived, Brandon was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, doing a casual power pose like a LinkedIn post come to life. Maya sat 2 seats down, eyes on a notebook she wasn't writing in. Jonas opened with his favorite phrase, "We value healthy debate." Translated, "We're about to tell you to shut up nicely." I walked through my deck anyway, footnoted, calm. When I finished, there was a long silence. Brandon finally said, "We can arrange an external review to make Daniel comfortable, but we can't let paranoia derail a transformational partnership." "Paranoia?" I said evenly. "Paranoia is doing nothing and calling it bold." Jonas rubbed his temple like truth gave him migraines. "Independent review," he said. "Limited scope. Parallel to negotiations. Satisfied?" "Documented," I said. That's what satisfies me. The meeting broke. Brandon lingered. You know, he said near the door, so only I could hear. Leadership notices who carries water and who spills it. Unlabel the buckets, I said. That's my job. He smiled the way men smile when they're calculating. Be a team player, Daniel. I am, I said, and watched his jaw tick. That night, Maya came over with Vietnamese food and a face like a weather map that promised lightning. We ate 3 bites each. Do you hate me? She asked suddenly. No, I said. I hate the situation. That's convenient, she said, bitter. The situation didn't DM Brandon at 1 a.m. I looked at her. It was like staring at a mural and remembering the wall it was painted on. I know about you and Brandon, I said quietly. And Ethan. And Trevor. It didn't feel like throwing a grenade. It felt like setting down something heavy I'd been pretending was light. Her face did something like a slow fracture. Who told you? A licensed PI, I said. Public places, public records. I didn't break laws. I didn't break you. You did that yourself. She flinched, then got angry, which is the safest emotion when the truth finds you. You hired a PI to follow me? Are you listening to yourself? Do you even hear how psychotic that sounds? I listened to you for months, I said, a low hum in my throat I didn't know I had. I listened when you said, it's just work. I listened when you said, don't make it weird. I listened to your phone buzz at midnight and to your keys at 6 a.m. I listened so hard I stopped hearing myself. Then I hired a professional to listen for me. You don't understand pressure, she said. You live in a world where math decides. I live in a world where rooms do. If you don't make people feel, you lose. I did what I had to do to get us across the line. Us? I said, and the word tasted like metal. She looked at me, eyes suddenly wet and furious. You think men like Brandon listen to me because of my bullet points? They listen because I'm useful to them. I chose to be useful. You chose to be available, I said, because the road to cruelty is paved with shock. To a colleague, to a client with a fiancé, to a consultant who'll sign whatever Brandon asks him to sign. She stood so fast her chair tipped. Say it, she spat. Say I slept my way up. I'm saying you burned a bridge you can't unburn, I said softly. Personal, professional, ethical. She stared at me for a long time. Then she laughed, and I felt it like a bruise. You want to be right more than you want to be happy, she said. That's your kink. Maybe, I said, but I get to live with myself in the morning. She left with her tote bag and a dignity you wear like armor when it's already full of holes. I sat on the floor for a while because chairs were not designed for that kind of emptiness. Newton head-butted my shoulder and made a sound that could have been concern or indigestion. In the morning, I emailed Rhea and said, we're moving to phase 2. We filed an internal conflict of interest complaint with the audit committee and legal, patterns of off-channel influence on vendor selection, potential fraternization affecting West Rock negotiations, retaliation risk, my lab access being mysteriously restricted. The language was boring by design. Boring is how you keep dynamite from going off in your hands. Corporate did what corporate does, acknowledged, scheduled, assured. HR pinged me to remind me about our respectful workplace training, as if morality were an I-learning module you could finish on 1.5x speed. The audit committee set a date for a review. Jonas canceled a town hall slide about key strategic partnership momentum, citing timing. In the hallway, Brandon told someone loudly that engineers love to cry wolf, and the someone loud the way people laugh when their mortgage depends on it. I assumed Maya would stop coming over. She did, for a week. Then she texted at 1:02 a.m. I can't sleep. Me neither, I wrote. You shouldn't be here. I'm not, she replied. I'm at my place. I don't know what I'm doing. I typed 3 different kinds of forgiveness and deleted all of them. I finally wrote, everyone knows what they're doing. They just don't like the noun. What noun? She asked. Choosing, I wrote. She didn't respond. 2 days later, Lila sent me a short text that detonated more quietly than it should have, harboring Co. Trevor is married. Wife's name is Allison. She comments on his LinkedIn like a person who believes in the man she married. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Betrayal isn't a triangle, it's a web. Every lie you tell one person, its own silk line, sticky and invisible until you're wrapped up, asking yourself how you stopped moving. That night, I took the folder out of the drawer and spread it on my dining table. Photos, receipts, Timestamps, nothing pornographic, nothing illegal, and still the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Somewhere in a different apartment, there was a woman named Tessa planning which candles to put on her wedding tables. Somewhere in a suburban kitchen, a woman named Allison was probably packing a bento box for a kid who thought his dad's business trips meant airplanes and hotel pools, not his mother's silence. I pictured Lily's camera, the way she pointed at a night sky and make you wait. Patience, she used to say. It's how you steal light from time. Justice is light stolen from time. But sometimes you have to point it in the right direction. I drafted an email. It wasn't to my CEO, it wasn't to HR, it wasn't to Maya, it was to a public Instagram account with hiking photos and engagement ring close-ups and captions about forever. I wrote, "Hi Tessa, you don't know me. My name is Daniel. I'm writing because I believe you deserve information about your fiancé, Ethan Cole. I have documentation that he is engaging in a relationship with a colleague of mine, Maya Collins, concurrent with your engagement. I am not asking for anything. I am not trying to hurt you. I'm simply offering to meet in a public place and show you what I have so you can decide what to do. I will not keep any copies if you ask me not to. I'm sorry. Oing nam. D." I read it 10 times. Rhea would tell me to let her send it. Lawyers are better shields than engineers. But this felt like something a human owed another human. I took a screenshot of the photos that showed faces, time-stamped in public places, one of the receipts, a redacted calendar snippet that proved the dates weren't my invention. I attached none of them. I hit send and felt nothing for a full minute, like my nerves had gone to lunch. Then I drafted a second email. This one to a personal address I found for Allison through a PTA newsletter from a school in Katy, near Houston, where Harbor & Co. had a campus talk last spring. I customized the words, I removed anything that felt like I was trying to do her thinking for her. Then I hit send again. I told myself I had not thrown a grenade, I had handed people a flashlight. The next morning, while I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know. I let it ring out. It buzzed again. Voicemail transcribed, "Hi, this is Tessa. I got your message. I don't know if this is some kind of, but can we meet today?" I called Rhea. "You're going to meet her in public," she said. "You're going to show her what you have and nothing more. You're not going to speculate. You're not going to give advice. You're going to be kind and factual. And then you're going to lead. Do you understand me?" "Yes," I said. "And Daniel?" "Yeah." "You're doing a hard good," she said. "It feels like violence. It isn't. It's a tourniquet. It hurts worse before it saves you." I met Tessa at a coffee shop near Zilker that thinks latte art is a personality. She walked in wearing a gray sweater and a face halfway between sleep deprivation and performance. She looked younger than her Instagram and older than her caption voice. She sat, didn't order, folded her hands like she might need them to stop shaking. "Are you Daniel?" she asked. "I am," I said. "Thank you for meeting me." "I thought you were a scammer," she said. "It wasn't a joke." "I wish I were," I said. I slid the folder across the table. "This is yours to look at. It's also yours to keep or destroy. I brought a second copy because my lawyer told me not to be dumb. But if you ask me to walk out with nothing, I will." She opened the folder. She went very still on the second photo. On the fourth, she made a noise like a word trying to be born. By the seventh, she put her hand to her mouth and didn't move it. When she finished, she closed the folder and placed both palms on top of it like she was warming a stone. "How long?" she asked. 9 weeks that I'm certain of," I said. "Maybe longer." "Do you know why?" She stared at me like I might be able to translate the logic of pain. "I don't," I said. "I know only the facts." She nodded. 2 tears fell, clean and furious. "We're supposed to do our tasting on Saturday," she said in a weirdly normal voice. "Cake. He wanted lemon." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it in a way that felt insufficient and true. She swallowed, straightened, and did something I didn't expect. She took out her phone and snapped a photo of each page. "I'm not asking you for permission," she said. "I'm telling you what I'm doing." Her hands weren't shaking anymore. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "I'm just the messenger." She exhaled and then asked, "And the woman? Maya?" "My girlfriend," I said, and the noun felt like a rotten tooth. "Was. I don't know. She works with me." Tessa gave a very small, very cruel smile that I understood completely. "Women like her," she said softly, "always think they're the exception to consequences." Then her face cracked again and the smile fell through it. We sat in silence long enough for the barista to ask if we wanted anything. We each bought a bottle of water like we owed the room rent. Tessa stood, slid the folder back to me, and said, "Keep your copy. I have mine." She hesitated and added, "Thank you, I think." "Take care," I said. She left with her shoulders squared in a way that made me believe she would. Outside, the sun made a liar out of my mood. Austin was gorgeous. People were walking dogs and pretending their coffees were about caffeine, not identity. I stood there with a folder full of someone else's wreckage and thought about how quiet a hallway can be even when every door is slamming. By the time I got back to my car, I had 2 missed calls and a voicemail from a Houston number. "Allison." I didn't listen to the message. I just texted, "I can meet late afternoon. Public place. Bring someone you trust if you'd like." At work, my lab access was magically restored. Sam from People Analytics sent me a screenshot of a new policy draft, relationship disclosure and vendor interaction guidelines. HR was moving. Legal scheduled our audit committee review for Friday. Brandon swaggered past my desk at 4012 p.m. and dropped, "Big week, huh?" like he was the only one who knew a storm was coming. When I left for the day, the elevator doors closed and I saw my face in the mirror. I looked like a man who'd spent a week carrying furniture upstairs that shouldn't have existed. I thought about Lily, about Maya, about the difference between mercy and complicity. Allison wanted to meet at a park near a church in Katy. Families were playing frisbee. A dad in a world's okayest golfer shirt was losing to a 7-year-old with pigtails. Allison wore a navy blouse and jeans and a look I recognized, the one people wear when they arrive at a truth and realize it's not a destination, but a cliff. She brought a friend who stood 20 yards away, pretending to be on her phone and scanning me for exits. "You must be Daniel," she said. "I must," I said, and handed her the second folder. She didn't sit. She flipped. She harumphed once in a way that would have been funny if it weren't a drowning sound. When she finished, she closed the folder and said, "Do you know if there are more?" "I don't," I said, "but patterns rarely stop where you first see them." She nodded. "I have 2 kids," she said, voice even, 11 and 8. "He coaches baseball. He folds towels wrong. He is not this person." "Maybe he is exactly the person he is," I said, because honesty had become the only thing I could carry without dropping it on my foot. Her friend walked over then and put a hand on Allison's back without speaking. They stood there like one animal with 2 hearts beating too fast. "Thank you," Allison said finally, and for a second I saw how hard it is to tell kindness and cruelty apart when they share a face. "You just saved me years. Maybe that's the worst part." "I'm sorry," I said again, the words wearing out and still the only ones I had. On the drive back to Austin, the sky went orange in a way that feels like forgiveness until it gets dark, and you realize light is alone. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk." Eve. Another. "I know what you did." I didn't respond. I turned off my notifications and turned on the radio and let a Springsteen song about men who don't know how to say they're sorry do the speaking for me. The audit committee would meet in 48 hours. My company would either prove that governance matters or teach me that it doesn't. Either way, 2 women knew the truth, and the hallway I'd been walking finally had a door at the end. I got home, dropped my keys in the bowl I made in a ceramics class I took because grief needs hobbies, and found Maya sitting on my stool. She stood when she saw me, hands empty. "Did you tell them?" she asked. "Not, 'How are you?' Not, 'Can we talk?' Just a woman doing triage on a life she'd set on fire." "Who?" I said, letting the word be difficult. "Don't do this," she said. "Did you tell Tessa? Did you tell Allison? Did you distribute me?" "I showed them what was already yours," I said, "and theirs. I didn't add a thing." She closed her eyes. When she opened them, there was a grief in her I hadn't expected to see grief for a version of herself she'd probably rehearsed for years. "You ruined me," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "You did that. I just turned on the light." She took a step back like I'd struck her. Then she squared her shoulders. God, she was good at that, and said, "You think this makes you a hero? It makes you small." "If small means refusing to make my life bigger with lies, I can live with that," I said. The porch light flickered like it had a sense of dramatic timing. Newton pressed his nose to the window beside the door, fogging it with his breath like a tiny, concerned dragon. Maya looked at him and then back at me, and for a second we were just 2 people who had tried to love each other in a world with more gravity than honesty. "I hope the truth keeps you warm," she said, and walked away. "It will," I said, but only after she turned the corner. Then I unlocked the door, sat on the floor with my back against it, and let the night settle around me like a verdict. Friday was coming. So were the lawyers. So was the fall. And I had one last decision to make before the audit committee met, whether to send the same folder cleaned, anonymized, to my company's board. I picked up my phone and started a new email. Subject: West Rock, Harbor & Co., conflict. Board awareness, confidential. I stared at the blinking cursor and remembered what Rhea said. Knowing is messy. Winning requires patience. I typed the first sentence, "Why not?" and hit save as draft. Friday came like a hammer. The audit committee sat me down in a windowless room with plants on the wall that looked as tired as I felt. Jonas, our CEO, 2 board members, HR, and a company lawyer were on one side. I was on the other with a folder full of truth. I laid out everything: technical risks, expense reports, comms patterns, and then the final blow, proof that Maya had been entangled with 3 men tied directly to our deals: Brandon, Ethan from West Rock, and Trevor from Harbor. The silence was suffocating. The lawyer clicked his pen. HR scribbled notes like her life depended on it. Jonas's face drained of color. I pushed the folder across the table. "All lawful, all public," I said. Nobody laughed this time. By the afternoon, Brandon had been placed on leave. Maya was scrubbed from the project, slack, as if she'd never existed. Trevor's name disappeared from consultant lists. The first real shock came the next morning. A message from Tessa. I ended it. The wedding's off. He packed his things. Thank you. Then another from Allison. Filed for divorce. New evidence will be in court. By Monday, whispers turned into noise. The industry blogs called it a scandal. Our company was suddenly under investigation. And that night, Maya was waiting on my porch. Her face was pale, swollen from crying. "You destroyed me," she said, her voice like broken glass. "No," I told her. "You destroyed yourself." I just turned on the light. She shook, half crying, half furious. "I lost my job. Ethan lost his fiancée. Trevor lost his family. You ruined 3 lives." "They did that," I answered calmly. "I just stopped you from pretending." Her laugh was bitter, empty. "You think this makes you noble? You're small." "Maybe, but at least I can live with myself tomorrow." She turned away. "I hope the truth keeps you warm." And she was gone. By Tuesday, HR made it official. New rules. Any undisclosed relationships meant instant firing. Brandon resigned. Maya's badge stopped working. Trevor was out. Ethan was locked in a corner office until he quit. A week later, the press named names. Careers ended in headlines. LinkedIn turned into a graveyard of former titles. And yet, somehow, I wasn't satisfied. Tessa called again. Her voice was steady, almost cold. He admitted everything. "Not just with her, with others too. The wedding's over. You saved me from wasting my life." Allison was even sharper. Her lawyer asked me to sign an affidavit. "This isn't just divorce," she said. "It's fraud. He'll lose everything." And she meant it. 2 weeks later, the scandal exploded publicly. Maya vanished offline. Brandon drifted into some cheap consultancy. Ethan's career crumbled, and Tessa rebuilt her life. Trevor was dragged through divorce court and left with nothing. Then, months later, one last text from Maya. "I moved. Different state. New job. I'm not okay, but I'm alive." I looked at it for a long time. Then I replied, "I hope you find a version of yourself you can live with." That was the last I ever heard from her. Me? I stayed. I ran again. I joined a non-profit that protects small towns from predatory contracts. I let truth, not revenge, become the thing I lived by. Sometimes I still hear her words, "You ruined me," and sometimes it hurts. But then I remember Tessa's face when she realized she'd escaped a marriage of lies. I remember Allison's fury harden into strength, and I know the truth. I didn't ruin them. They did. Because betrayal isn't just one act. It's a hallway of doors, and I was the one who opened them one by one and let the light in. So tell me, did I go too far? Or not far enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, hit like and subscribe.